people who couldn't afford to go to college, the people who were immigrants from the southwestern states, the people who lived in the urban ghettos. We were the lower side of society. We were the lower economic, social economic status of society. We were the ones that found ourselves in the military. Those who could afford to go to Canada went to Canada. Those who could find a doctor to label them as ill did that. Some legitimately were 4F and should not have been in the military, but avoiding military service became a bit of a game. You became a hero if you avoided military service, and if you didn't, you were either a psychopathic killer who just couldn't wait to get to Vietnam, or you were a fool who just simply wasn't smart enough to get out of it. Nobody really stopped to think that what we really were boys. What we really were teens who simply hadn't been able to cope with the fact of war. That I went to Vietnam without any political views. I didn't go to fight because I was going to win a great victory for America. I didn't go to fight because of patriotism. I didn't think. I didn't really sit down and think about what I was doing. I just knew that I was raised on TV shows, movies, books, comics, all about America and its invincibility, all about the rite of passage, you know, going to war so that you became a man, and tradition. My father fought in the Second World War. I had several uncles fought in the Second World War. One uncle fought in the First World War. It wasn't in my nature, in my family, to duck, you know, to go to Canada, to pretend to be sick, to resist. And so I went into the military thinking, okay, I'm just going to get my 2 years over and get out. And that'll be that. They won't be able to bother me anymore. Anyway, I'm going back a little. I think I covered this in the first tape, so let's jump forward a bit. I was wounded on March 25th of 1968. It was a week before Lyndon Johnson declared that he would not run for a second term in office. It was about 2 weeks before Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it was 2 days before my 21st birthday. We had gone on patrol, we meaning a company-sized patrol, and were ambushed by a major North Vietnamese force. I don't know which force it was, but it was enough for them to stay and fight rather than break off and try to avoid contact. When we walked into the killing zone, which is what the area that an ambush is designed to cover is called a killing zone, it was not hard to recognize that it was set up as an L ambush. There are two kinds of ambushes that I was familiar with. One was a valley ambush where you were on lower ground than the attacking forces, the ambushing forces, in which case they could literally face each other and shoot downward in a crisscross fashion, just in a V. The other, which we used in larger ambushes and also on flat ground, was called an L ambush, and that essentially was lining up troops on either the left or the right side and then in front of you, so that their fire wouldn't they wouldn't be shooting each other with us in the middle. The fire would come from, in this case, the left and from the front, creating a checkerboard grid with fire coming in both directions. It was a large enough ambush to where they waited until the whole company was in the ambush, rather than hit the lead squad or the lead platoon, which often was the kind of ambush that they would hit and then break. And there was logic to that. There was logic to breaking off, because the strategy used in Vietnam by North Vietnamese units was to strike quickly and get out before the Americans could bring in the heavy artillery. The American strategy at the time seemed to be send out an infantry unit of enough people to tempt the North Vietnamese to attack and keep them engaged long enough to bring in air support and artillery support where the real damage could be done. In the meantime, we on the ground found ourselves engaged for anywhere from 20 minutes to 4 or 5 hours with an enemy waiting for us to get our support. This ambush went off very well for the North Vietnamese. We were, I'm not going to say we were tired or seen too much. You know, we'd come through the Tet Offensive. We were frightened that we were going to have to go to Khe Sanh. There was a valley that nobody wanted to go into called the A Shau Valley, which we were scheduled to patrol. I know we were all pretty frightened about that. It was a stronghold, an NVA stronghold, and anyone who's been to Vietnam will know the name of the A Shau Valley. So, be that as it may, the lead scouts didn't see the ambush, and we walked into it. When the ambush actually broke, I was about a third of the way in, and away from the left side of the fire, because my unit was out on flank, on right flank, and we were in the 3rd platoon in to go in. So the initial burst of fire took out much of the 1st platoon. 1st platoon in. I don't remember whether that was 1st or 2nd platoon. And we took casualties, but not nearly as bad as the ones that were thoroughly into the killing zone. The thing about an ambush is when it first happens, when the first shot is fired, what you're trying to do is kill as many people as you can before they have a chance to find cover. So in the initial 15 seconds, let's say, everyone involved in the ambush empties their weapon, just puts it on full automatic and sends bursts out. That was what was called the Mad Minute. Mad Minute in an ambush meant that if you were alive, you were lucky. That was pretty much it. And you reacted as fast as you could, which meant hit the ground, look for cover, and if you could fire your weapon, fire your weapon. It really didn't matter whether you had a target or not. You just put rounds out to try and keep somebody's head down out there. Because if you're shooting at him, he can't shoot back. And that was, the military calls that suppressive fire.